What's your take on this situation?
Well, the power struggle was ended today. We just proved that unless you have a mansion in the Hamptons or in Greenwich, Connecticut, well, guess what? You're not allowed to manipulate the markets and move stocks the way that everyone else seems to do on Wall Street. Today was absolutely shameful. I've been covering Wall Street frauds and scams for a long time, over 20 years on my radio show, and they usually try to hide it. But this was right out in the open today. So you basically banned a myriad of different platforms today, banned the buying of a stock. Selling was okay. Now, there needs to be two sides for every transaction. For every seller, there needs to be a buyer. What do you think is going to happen to the stocks if you eliminate all the buyers? Of course, the bottom is going to come out of this. You also have to follow the money as well. Many of these big hedge funds out there are tied in to a lot of these trading outfits. And the reality is that's where these big trading outfits, these platforms, that's where their bread is buttered. The bread is not buttered by somebody trading 10, 15 shares of stock on their Robinhood account.
Now accusations are going around on Twitter that Robinhood is forcing users to sell off their position in stocks like GameStop. That does appear, though, at this point to be protected by the terms of service that users agree to. How do we move forward with this?
It's those long disclaimers that nobody ever reads when they sign up for services. I'm not even aware of that. I'm not an active trader. We manage money for people, and we're fundamental investors. In full disclosure, we have no interest in any of these stocks, GameStop, AMC, or anything like that. But if you're forcing people to sell, in my business, okay, what I do, if I don't have discretion over someone's account, I go to jail. And I think the same thing should be held for all of these guys out there. You're selling people stock in their account that they don't want to sell. Again, I don't know what type of disclaimer, what type of thing that they put into people's user agreements, but to me, that's patently absurd.
Typically, when a stock gets pretty volatile on Wall Street, you'll see a halt of trading, but that's a halt on both sides. That's a halt on selling, also a halt on buying. What's different about what Robinhood did today?
It wasn't just Robinhood. It was TD, it was Interactive Brokers, it was Schwab. There was a lot of platforms out there that said, listen, you can't buy this stock. Again, the difference is who's making money on this end. You've got some major players on the hedge fund world that are, again, I've got a lot of contacts all over Wall Street that said, hey, you know what? We're losing billions of dollars here. You want our business, so shut this down. To me, again, I've never seen it so far out in the open. And we talk about, the game be out. There's an old George Carlin routine where he said it's a big club and you ain't in it. Well, guess what? It's a big club and you ain't in it. This goes back out to all those American retail investors out there. You can see how Wall Street actually operates.
Regulators are facing scrutiny now for being concerned about the role of manipulation in this week's activity, but not applying, as you mentioned, those same standards to larger firms. Do you agree?
You have to take a look at the Securities and Exchange Commission is like CSI. They come in after the fact and then they investigate the crime. They're not a proactive organization where they're actually going to do anything about it while it's happening. And the reality of the situation was the markets were functioning. People go on to social media. They're going to go on to social media and they want to talk up a stock, whatever it may be. You know what? That's fine. They're not forcing anybody to buy it. You can either choose to listen to that advice or listen to somebody on some media board. This is nothing new. This used to go on back in the 1990s, or you can choose not to. That's entirely up to you. But again, when the wrong people got on the wrong side of this trade, well, guess what? Can't have that. The hedge fund guys can't lose.
Senator Sherrod Brown, who's the incoming chairman of the Senate Banking Committee, announced just a few moments ago that he is planning to hold a hearing in his committee to address this issue and get to the bottom of this. What kind of changes could Congress make at the federal level to limit this kind of stuff from happening in the future?
Well, you go by historical precedent, probably nothing. They'll hold a hearing. They'll probably talk about it. But again, the guys that were losing money are the guys that cut the big checks to these politicians. So, yeah, you might see some finger wagging and you might see a parade. And it might even make, the 6 o'clock news at the end of the day. But when all's said and done, business as usual.
And then in the future, do you see this kind of activity continuing and creating a more permanent shift in the market function?
Again, I think that maybe some of these hedge fund guys are going to be a little bit more careful in regards to shorting stocks. I mean, it's patently absurd that they're actually even allowed to short 140% of an entire float of a company. They might look out for that. But then again, what difference does it make if they're going to get bailed out in broad daylight?